Okay, time for another quick update on the van build. Today I reached a pretty big milestone. I got all the electrical roughed in and it's all working. So I'll give you a little rundown of what that looks like. As I mentioned, it's just roughed in at the moment. So we have some wires that are longer than they need to be. The routing isn't perfect, but once I get the final installation done, it'll look a lot better than this. We'll get the wires all the correct size or length rather, and organize the routing a little better. But I will have to remove all this, so just to do all the finish work. So a few things I've got left to do. I'll have to uninstall everything, take all the wood panels, sand them, finish them with polyurethane, get all the bench and everything out of here so I can put the floor in, and some of the wall panels that are going to be behind the bench there. So yeah, I'll give you a rundown of what the electrical system is looking like. So we've got two 100 amp hour lithium batteries that are tied together in parallel. And we've got one big terminal fuse there that's kind of, if something really goes wrong, that terminal fuse will blow last. It's rated, I think, for 250 amps, much higher than all the other fuses in the system. So it's kind of the last ditch kill switch, if you will. So from there, it runs over to the main cutoff switch. Go ahead and turn that on. That was the inverter beeping as it came on. So yeah, that switch runs over, the output of the switch runs over to the DC distribution block, and then the other loads kind of tie off from there. That block has 200 amp fuses across, and for any circuit that I need kind of lower levels of protection, I've got circuit breakers for those individual circuits. So the one for the DC panel runs over to this panel here, where it's got all your loads for the lights, the fan, the heater, those types of things, all the DC circuits. And the fridge has its own, because it's not tied into that DC distribution block. The fridge has the capability of running on 12 volts, but it pulls a lot of current. I think it's 13 amps or so. So it's not something we use very often, but anyhow. And then let's see, on the ground side, we've got the shunt that measures all the currents going in and out of the battery. And then we're also grounded to the steel chassis in the back over there. Yeah, so the shunt feeds the information about all the currents going in and out of the battery to this display, and it shows you how much power is being drawn for whatever you're running. So that 10 watts there is kind of the resting load of this big inverter. And yeah, so if we, for example, turn on some of the lights, we'll see that start to pull a little more power. On the AC side, the inverter goes over to this manual transfer switch. So going into the manual transfer switch, we have the shore power, the generator, and the inverter output. It goes to a switch here that I'll be able to access from the rear of the van. I won't have need to access it very often. We'll just leave it on the inverter most of the time. We don't really use shore power or the generator hardly ever. So yeah, you just switch it between zeros off, 1 shore power, 2's generator, 3 is the inverter, and then that this side goes over to the alternating current circuit breakers here. So it feeds all the AC outlets. Well, that's really it. I don't have the air conditioner anymore. It's been removed from the van. Yeah, so pretty much just the AC outlets. Yeah, so I'll give you a demonstration of how that works. So I've got a heat gun plugged into the AC outlet there. We'll kind of start it off on a lower setting so it doesn't get too crazy. And we'll turn that on. And that setting's pulling about 700 watts using the inverter. We'll crank up the heat just a little. Stick and pull about 1,000 watts. So yeah, it's all working pretty good. I'm trying to think of what else to show you. Oh, the DC to DC battery charger is wired to the alternator block under the hood, and I also installed a manual switch. That manual switch controls this wire here, which they call it I think it's the D plus on these Renogy battery chargers. Anyhow, that tells the charger to turn itself on and start feeding current to the batteries. The reason why I wired a manual switch to it was basically so it doesn't start like upon startup of the vehicle. I don't want it running right away. And also, if the van's idling, the alternator's not spinning fast enough to cool itself. It kind of has cooling fans that are tied to the speed of the alternator that's spinning. So probably not going to use it while idling, but I will turn it on while I'm driving down the highway. So that switch is located just right by my driver's side dashboard here, and I just reused one of the switches that was in the PleasureWay originally. So anyway, that gives me manual control over when that DC to DC charger is on. Yeah, let's go under the hood. I'll show you where that ties in. Okay, so that DC to DC charger is coming off of, there's a tie point, it's hard to read, but it says alternator plus there. That's where the original isolator was tied into. So I just reused that and ran 4-gauge wire through a circuit breaker, and that runs down. You won't be able to see it, I don't have a light, but runs down through there underneath the van, and then comes up through a hole in the floor in the back. This other one is for the generator starter motor. So originally that was tied to the coach battery, you know, the original one that came in this door. But since now that battery is gone, I had to reroute it and pull off the truck battery. So now I'm using the original, you know, the Ford truck battery to start the generator. But like I said, I've rarely ever used a generator. I'm actually considering pulling it out of the van altogether. Once I get all this stuff working, I won't really have a need for the generator anymore. So yeah, that's an update on the build. Any questions, just give me a shout in the comments. Thanks.